everyone, this is a video response to, again, Katie Flowers. If you do not follow her, please go follow her. She is amazing. Go follow her. She did a video about old faithful decks. So decks you've had for a while. Maybe you haven't used them. Maybe you use them all the time. But they're old favorites. So you've had them for at least, I think she said, 3 years. So I have a few. I'm just going to go through tarot and not oracle. I might do a separate video that's oracle cards and show you some of my old faithful decks that I work with and that I love. So the first deck that I had back in the 90s, and then I don't know, I got rid of it or traded it or something, and then I got back again, is Tarot of Moon Garden. This is a deck that definitely brings up some nostalgia for me. I tend to think of this for some reason as a summer deck, even though it's like a nighttime. Maybe it's because I think of like gardens at night or something. It's a very imaginative type deck. It's got like unicorns and Pegasuses and angels, and it's got kind of like I'm trying to think, it's definitely like pastel-y in some ways, but it's also not very sharply focused. It's sort of got like a soft focus to it in some ways. But I really do enjoy it for particular readings. Again, I find this to be kind of a summer deck. I think this is a deck that some people claim this deck is nice wash, but I think this is a deck that is, you know, definitely less scary. I think it's a more feminine deck. I like this deck. I like this deck. And it's kind of old school. It has like a kind of 90s nostalgia for me. So that's one there. Another deck that I had and then gotten rid of, but then bought, it was a few years ago, at least 3 years ago. Oh, crystal shot out. That's what that was. Oh, darn it. I'll have to go get it. Is the Revelations Tarot. This is one of my favorite decks. It is a deck that has both a right side up picture and an upside down picture. I think it is an excellent deck for learning reversals. There we go. It's kind of a more, I would say, masculine deck in some ways, and it has sort of a modern stained glass feel is what I would say to this, with the colors are a lot brighter, they're more jewel toned, there's a lot of strong outlines giving it a more graphic feel to it. The faces are somewhat abstract, but it does kind of make me think of stained glass windows in some ways, the way that the sharp lines are. But it's very modern rather than medieval. So I do really like this deck. This to me is more of a winter deck. There's something about the jewel tones and the more sort of, I want to say harsh, but that's not it. I think it's more angular is what I mean. That makes me think of that. Another deck I've had for a while is the Tarot of the Vampires, which I tend to pull up around October, of course. This is a deck that some people might say is dark washed as opposed to light washed or nice washed. Maybe it's spooky washed, whatever you want to call it. This is definitely a darker deck. Not for everybody, that is for sure. It's great for Halloween. I think it's great for kind of like shadow work readings. Or if your aesthetic taste just happens to be a little bit darker, I think that is good for that. But it's definitely not for everyone. But I have had this deck for a while. I think I got this one in 2010, 2011. And it is a deck that I do enjoy working with. Not all the time, but it is something that I have had for quite a while. And I do enjoy. So I'll put that back in bags. You can kind of tell the older decks too because they're in bags rather than boxes. Whereas now, you know, Llewellyn and a lot of the other publishers have caught on that people want to store their decks in nice boxes. So there's that. Another deck I've had forever, and I've actually thinking of pulling out again. I used to use it all the time, is my Golden Tarot. There's different Golden Tarots. This one is a collage of medieval type artwork, various different artwork. I studied medieval history, so it's sort of funny seeing different artwork I've studied collaged into a tarot deck, but I do really enjoy it. I think it's a classic. A lot of people really like this and really react to the figures in here. I like this Three of Swords. It's a little bit different. Very medieval, very rich colored. You can tell it's kind of banged up, that it has been used a lot. The gilding on the side is rubbing off. Like it is, but it is an old staple, an old faithful, and I do really love this deck. Alrighty. What's next, Lou? Oh, and I have one more Old Faithful that I use over and over again. And if you've had a reading from me, you probably have had a reading from this particular deck. It is the Shadowscapes Tarot. It's kind of like my deck that if you could save only one deck, and that would be terrible because I would want to save them all, it would be the Shadowscapes. I love this deck. I know it's not a deck everyone connects with because the way the paintings are, a lot of people have argued they really should be larger because there's so many details in them. But I do love that every time I look at these, I find something new. It's a very soft deck in a lot of ways. The colors, it's very watercolor. So people would say it's more feminine, but I find that this deck is not cutesy. It has a very fae type energy to it, a very fairy type energy to it, and it delivers messages in a straightforward way, but not a harsh way, and I do really like that. And I just really like this deck. It's got a fae type energy to it, which I quite love. This is a summer deck for me, usually one I use around June, but it's a deck, it's kind of like the Old Faithful that is, sometimes I'll have a deck that I work with for the month, but sometimes I get an intuitive hit that maybe that deck's not going to work for that person I'm reading with. Often this deck I find works for most people. So those are my favorites of the older decks. Let me know if you were doing this tag too, this video response. I would love to check it out. I love to see what other old favorites people are doing or working with, and it's just it's just nice to see what people are kind of reading with in the tarot community. So let me know, do you like these decks? What do you think of them? Like and subscribe. As always, peace, love, and rock and roll, and have an awesome day.